Mayor Allen, it is 6:30. You may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you, Clerk Ainsworth. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Council Township of Springwater of December 1, 2021 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Due to COVID-19, Council's taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. So we are conducting this meeting by Zoom, and Council members and staff and the public who are presenting are tuning in virtually. If you wish to watch this meeting, you can watch the meeting on the Township's website, www.springwater.ca. You can listen to the meeting from a telephone during the meeting by dialing 647-558-0588 and using the ID 848-5640-7522. That is available during the meeting, that option. And if you want to look after the meeting is over at the streaming, you can review the meeting at your convenience by watching the video on the Township YouTube channel. Council, good evening. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests on matters this evening? Seeing none, we will proceed to the public meeting. And can I have a mover and seconder to call a public meeting to order? Councillor Ma Chapman, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that this public meeting of Council held under Section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act for application ZB 2021-12 and 2021-003 regarding the Thompson lands be called to order at 6:32 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with Section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to proposed plans of subdivision and amendment to the Township Springwater zoning bylaw as amended. First part of the meeting is to present the amendment. Following that, the public will be given the opportunity to make an oral submission through the Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of the plan of subdivision or zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed approval bylaw is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed to myself as chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the Township's website. We are dealing with ZB 2021-12 and 2021-003, the Thompson lands. I will now call upon the Deputy Clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 10th day of November 2021 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 5 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed properties to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Carson Road. The notice was also placed on the Township's website.
Has the Planning Department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence has been received from Canada Post in an email dated October 7th, 2021, from the Simcoe County District School Board in an email dated October 12th, 2021, from Hydro One in an email dated October 19th, 2021, from the County of Simcoe in an email dated October 26th, 2021, revised comments from the Simcoe County District School Board in an email dated November 3rd, 2021, revised comments from Hydro One in an email dated November 11th, 2021. Enbridge in an email dated November 17th, 2021. Huron-Wendat Nation in an email dated November 17th, 2021. And the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board in an email dated November 19th, 2021. All submissions are attached to the agenda for review. And just to note that immediately prior to the meeting, the comments were corrected with involving the Huron-Wendat Nation. So anybody who would have seen the comments prior to about 6 o'clock, those comments have been revised.
Thank you. I will now call upon Matthew Corey of Malone Given Parsons and Ms. Cheryl Shindrick from Geranium to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of the proposal.
Thank you. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council and ladies and gentlemen, and all the staff joining us this evening. My name is Cheryl Shindrick, and I'm here this evening representing the owner in the applications that are before you, which are draft plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment. The subject, I do believe we have a presentation that we can put up on the screen for the benefit of all of those joining us. Thank you, Matthew. There we go. So if we go to the next slide, the subject lands are outlined there in red, and this is in the Midhurst Secondary Plan area. You'll recognize Snow Valley Road to the north and Carson Road to the south, and Wilson Drive on the west side. This 30-acre parcel is bounded by the mixed subdivision, which sits immediately to the north and is registered and presently under construction. The subject lands front onto Calypso Avenue in that subdivision, and it is bounded on the east side by the draft plan of subdivision noted there, the D. Hickling lands, SPT 1005, which is a draft plan approved subdivision. And to the east and to the south are the valley lands associated with the watercourse that runs through this area. As you can also see from this graphic, the subject lands connect the two lands parcels that I've just described, the mix to the north and the D. Hickling lands to the east. We are here before you with a draft plan of subdivision application and a zoning bylaw amendment application, as I noted earlier. If you go to the next slide, it should summarize the designations on the property, and I'm just going to describe that for you, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Corey to speak to the actual plan of subdivision. The lands are designated for the proposed use. You can see there that the land use map shows them designated as Midhurst low density residential, and you also have the environmental protection lands that are associated with the valley lands to the west and to the south. The park overlay designation is also encroaching onto the property, of course denoting that there is a significant park planned in this particular area, and the park that is planned, park area proposed on the subject lands will be combined with the park that is proposed on the neighboring D. Hickling subdivision lands. And so if you go to the next slide, that brings us to the draft plan of subdivision, which I'll ask Mr. Corey to please walk us through.
Sure, Cheryl, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and to the public listening in. The draft plan you see before you is comprised of essentially extension of roads from the Mix and D. Hickling subdivision plans to the north and to the east. The lotting and the road pattern is continued and completed in this portion of the Midhurst secondary plan by making these road connections. You can also see on block 168 in the northeast portion of this property. The future park that is located on the dehickling plan that Cheryl referenced earlier is completed, and the residual portion of the park is provided through this subdivision plan, as well as a walk-in connection off of the Street A that's proposed just in the northeast portion of the plan area. The plan is comprised of single detached units, which is as anticipated and permitted by the Midhurst secondary plan. Those are comprised of three 50-foot lots, 15.2 meter lots shown in the yellows that you can see here, these three yellows. In the orange color, there is 56 13.4 meter lots, which are 44-foot lots. Those are throughout the plan area, as you can see, and especially around the periphery. And then through the majority of the central part of the plan, there are 108 36-foot lots. All homes proposed here will have two-car driveways, two-car garage, just as a note. And then the other major thing to note in the draft plan, there is an environmental protection area that exists on the south and west portion of the property. You can see that in the hatching that's shown on the draft plan. It's proposed right now that those lands be zoned and protected for environmental protection, but included in the rear of all of the lots backing onto the valley. And the proposal by the applicant is that there would be all appropriate protections to ensure that no development could occur there. And that is the proposal currently to the town. We are in discussions with township staff and with the Conservation Authority, and very open to those lands going into public ownership if that is the preference of the township in the end. At the current discussions, it was not clear if there would be public ownership or if public ownership would be taken over for those lands, which is why the current proposal shows the lots and the rear of those lots in an environmental protection zoning, and with the appropriate legal protections that would be put in place in association with such zoning. In terms of the planning context, this is the current zoning schedule. It's obviously been updated and amended to the north, which has not been reflected yet in the township zoning amendment to show the UR2 designation that now applies to the mixed subdivision. Currently, the lands are zoned EP and agricultural. And the proposed zoning amendment that we'd be asking for would be to implement two zones on the property, three zones, I should say. We're proposing the zoning to go from agricultural to the UR2. This is the residential 2 exception zone over the majority of the property where the lots and development are proposed. The reason for that is that's implementing the Midhurst zoning bylaw amendment that's already in place and force in effect with the standards. We're just applying them on an individual basis with one or two exceptions that apply to the lotting and the permissions we're looking for that were considered previously on the mixed subdivision as well. I'll get into that in the next slide. And then the portion of the park that is that block in the northeast corner is proposed to be OS, which is an open space zone, which is the township standard for zoning such uses as the park. And then lastly, the rear of the lots as shown right now in accordance with the environmental limits are shown as zoned environmental protection zone. And in terms of the zone standards, those are on the slide there. These are the standard zones, standards that were implemented as the kind of parent zone standards that were put in force for all of Midhurst secondary plan area by council. The one exception is we're asking for exterior side yard encroachments at the very last standard that you see in this table of 1.5 meters for porches and stairs. The reason for that request, similar to the mixed plan and other plans in this area, this allows for porches to wrap around the corner of exterior lots when they're on a corner lot situation. and greatly enhances the ability to do a more enhanced treatment and have those lots as architecturally notable lots as you drive through the neighborhood, and with a porch and a more personable and enhanced interface with the streetscape. So with that, that is the proposal. Mr. Mayor, members of council, and to the public, we're obviously here tonight to present it, to answer any questions, and more than anything, to hear from you and the public with any comments you may have. Very happy to have any comments tonight, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you both. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who've registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission regarding this application tonight.
Okay, and do members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? I have a question with respect to the hashed area behind the ravine lots. So you say that you're in discussion with respect to possibly having that be public land. So there could be trails within that that would hook up to other potential trails. Is that a possibility?
Your
Yes.
worship,
Yeah, go ahead,
your
Chair.
worship, thanks, Matthew. Yes, so the choice would be for the municipality. If there is a decision to take these lands as public lands to be owned by the municipality, it would be within the municipality's purview to place a trail back there, should that be the desired use. And so as Matthew has alluded to, we are in discussions with your staff and the Conservation Authority about that. So we are open to either scenario, whether they are protected with the suite of measures that we've proposed in the way that is depicted on the plan, with restrictive zoning, a restrictive covenant in favor of the township, and an access easement, or whether the block would be, the area would be conveyed as a block to the municipality, is equally acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Council, comments, questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any at this point, so thank you very much for the presentation, and for those who participated in the public meeting with respect to this proposed plan of subdivision and the zoning bylaw amendment applications, and for showing interest in this matter. Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn this public meeting, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Moore, that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act, application ZP 2021-12 and 2021-003, Thompson Lands, does now adjourn at 6:47 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank you,
your
Ms.
worship,
Thank you,
members of
Worship.
council. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, can I have a mover and seconder to receive the direction following the public meeting, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman. That council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 and 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, P13 is amended on subdivision application is SU 2021-003 and zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2021-12 by 2793690 Ontario Limited, Thompson Lands, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. At 5.1 on the agenda, I will now call upon Trevor Carter to make a presentation concerning the light trespass or nuisance lighting bylaw. Mr. Carter.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council, for allowing me to speak with you. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm certainly a novice at this. I have no idea how to introduce a bylaw. It's not exactly a presentation, but I did put together a request that Council consider the idea of creating a bylaw to deal with the possibility of nuisance light or light trespass on people's property. I've submitted a small document, just a couple of pages long, and I'm going to just read a little bit of it to you just so you can hear what my idea was for this nuisance light or light trespass law. I know that many municipalities around Ontario have regulations around existing or future approval and installation of lights and lighting that could result in light trespass on people's residential properties. Obviously, poor site light design on someone's property could create light pollution for other people, and it could be a nuisance and negatively affect people's enjoyment of their residential property. In doing my own research, I found that Burlington, Richmond Hill, and Mississauga are just a few of the municipalities in Ontario that have existing nuisance lighting or light trespass bylaws. From my own research, reading through from what I've seen in the other municipalities' bylaws, Section 129 of the Municipal Act would allow a township to pass a bylaw to regulate outdoor lighting. That's what I'm gathering anyway from the research I did on my own. So I'm simply here to ask council to consider my request to pass a nuisance lighting bylaw or a light trespass bylaw. I'm certainly no lawyer, but I put together a little sample just based on what I found online. And really in the attached document, paragraph 4.1c pretty much sums up exactly what I was hoping to convey to council. And in that section, 4.1c, the essence of the bylaw is that no direct lighting or indirect lighting should be used so that an unusual quantity or type of light creates a glare or any light trespass upon the land of others so as to be or to cause a nuisance to the public generally or to others residing or carrying on a business or trade in the area. And that's really what I was hoping to have council consider, the idea of especially with the previous presentation that we just had, where you can see the township is growing. We have lots of development. I think following the lead of other municipalities and getting a light trespass bylaw put into place would be a pretty good idea to have in our township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ritchie. Questions, comments, council? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to, I believe, Director Spagnol. More recently, myself as an individual or resident, when submitting a site plan approval, we actually had to do a lighting mitigation plan. Without there being a bylaw in the municipality, it was still required. So I'm just curious if you can elaborate on that for me.
Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Marilyn, through the Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So as standard practice through the site plan process, lighting plans are required to ensure that lighting is directed towards the commercial use and to avoid any offsite impacts to any neighboring properties. In addition to that, even as part of residential subdivision development, there are required lighting plans and whatnot that are also to look at any potential nuisance impacts. Through the development process, these are pretty standard requirements. I think what Mr. Carter is referring to is where you might have existing residential properties or things of that nature where there might be directing light onto other existing residential properties or other uses, which may have an impact on the enjoyment of that particular property owner's use of the property. In that instance, there's a separate type of bylaw that would be implemented through the township and as stated through the Municipal Act, and that is a separate bylaw which would have to be enforceable through bylaw enforcement. So for new development, there are standards that take a look at light pollution and directing lighting away from properties. But I think what Mr. Carter is referring to is another bylaw, which is really to deal with existing properties that may be directing light onto other properties, causing a nuisance.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to Director Spagnol. Would it be fair to say that most the light trespassing bylaws would be more appropriate in, I guess, what we might consider urban residential areas, along in keeping with what you've already alluded to. And also, I guess it would also be fair to consider that at the development stage for residential development or commercial development or industrial development, that as you've said, these types of things are already put into consideration and looked after at that stage.
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councilor Cabral. Just to answer the last question, yes, the Planning Act for any development requires that certain studies and plans be provided. And it is a standard that the township require lighting plans and reports to ensure that offsite impacts are not experienced by other property owners as a result of development. The question regarding I guess a light nuisance bylaw or light pollution bylaw, to my mind, it wouldn't be a bylaw that would only be applicable to urban areas. The reason for that is you may have situations even out in the rural areas where lighting may be directed onto a neighboring property that's causing a nuisance. So the idea of such a bylaw would be just to ensure that such light pollution, there's a mechanism to regulate and enforce any instance where light is being directed onto a neighboring property causing a nuisance. It may be more prominent and maybe more prominent in the urban areas just because you've got more people, but it's not an issue that only lies within the urban areas. It could be an issue that could potentially happen out in the rural areas as well.
Follow on?
Follow on?
Yeah, thank you. Director Spagnell, through you, Mayor Allen. Director Spagnell, given in the rural area, there are certain designations in zoning as far as property itself is concerned. Depending on the zoning of the property, say A1 agricultural or A2 agricultural, would those bylaws still apply in say an agricultural operation?
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councilor Cabral. So the zoning bylaw doesn't necessarily deal with lighting in the township right now. What we're talking about is a Municipal Act Bylaw, which deals with the regulation of lighting impacts. So the type of bylaw that's being discussed wouldn't be captured under Section 34 of the Planning Act. It would essentially be captured under the Municipal Act, where the municipality has the ability to establish bylaws to control lighting and to regulate and enforce any lighting nuisances. So such a bylaw might not apply to, would apply to my mind to various uses, because it's simply looking at the impact of the lighting that's being projected onto a neighboring property. So I would say that from an exemption standpoint, for example, if you want to talk about combines, for example, or farm machinery working in the fields, to me, I mean, that's an agricultural use that's permitted on the property. As far as that being a lighting nuisance, that's not what these types of bylaws cover. They'll cover, say, for example, if somebody puts a security light on, say, for example, an outbuilding, and it's pointing at a house, and the light is projecting into somebody's window, causing them to stay awake at night or something to that effect. Those are the types of nuisances that would be covered under such a bylaw as what's being proposed by Mr. Carter.
Have we had many complaints or any complaints about lighting, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Allen. Each year we do get a few. I believe last year there were 5 complaints, the year before 4 complaints. Without having a bylaw to enforce, staff do try to help out the residents as much as possible, and will generally call the property owner where the complaint is stemming from, just to advise of the complaint. And we've been able to mitigate any issues to date, just with opening up a conversation between the 2 property owners.
Thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. My question, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Carter. And my question would be, if anyone lives adjacent to the pavilions, like those lights give off a pretty strong light, would that fall under nuisance bylaw?
Which pavilion are you referring to, Councillor Montchalman?
Any of them?
Any of them?
Medicine, Midhurst,
Who would like to tackle that question? Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Montchalman. I can take an attempt at addressing it. If I'm incorrect, I'll leave it to Clerk Ainsworth. Such a bylaw would apply to pavilions or anything that may cause a nuisance to neighboring properties. So it would be under the bylaw to ensure that the lighting is directed away from those properties to avoid such a nuisance. But that would require investigation just to take a look at what the issue is in order to determine the extent of the nuisance and whether or not there is an issue. I'll leave it to Clerk Ainsworth to respond if there's anything that she thinks it needs to be added.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. No, nothing else to add.
Okay, Councillor Cabral? You're still muted, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I thought I'd pushed it. I just wanted to make a little bit of a comment here with respect to the deliberate shining of lights and whatnot into other people's property. Is that outside of the bylaw, there also exists a criminal code charge of mischief, which basically says obstructs, interrupts, or interferes with the lawful use, enjoyment, or operation of property. So it's one of the sections in the criminal code that deals with mischief. So I think given that we don't have a bylaw, if somebody was doing it deliberately, I'm just suggesting that maybe that might be a situation where our friends in the OPP might actually be able to take action on behalf of the complainant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Would it be prudent of us to send this back to staff for a report on what a bylaw would look like for the township? I think of commercial uses, I think of residents, we're getting a lot more houses, plus potential cannabis production facilities. I think that we probably need to have something more formalized. So would I make a motion for that, or how do I?
I would suggest you bring it up for items for future consideration.
So we wouldn't address it now? Okay.
No, yeah,
Okay.
we'll address it as at items for future consideration. Thank you. All right, if there are no other comments, then the motion reads the delegation from Trevor Carter regarding the request for consideration of light trespass or nuisance lighting bylaw be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you very much, Council. Thank you for your time.
Moving on to 5.2, we have a deputation from Ms. Sarah Hunter, an addition of a concrete pad to the Crystal Wood Park. Ms. Hunter, welcome.
Thank you. We're just going to screen share here. Here we go. And you can start.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I appreciate your time and the people here. My name is Peyton Hunter, here to request a mini basketball court for the neighborhood. I'm here with my mom, and she is going to help me a little bit. It's time for our park to grow up. Why a concrete pad? We want to make our park a better place for older kids to socialize, be in nature, and enjoy times with friends. There are over 50 kids who have outgrown the park and are seeking something different, which is where a concrete pad would come in handy. The majority of the people on our block don't have paved driveways or high-speed internet. A concrete pad can also be used as a gathering place for children to play, as a spot to play games that requires a smooth surface, such as hockey, basketball, and other sports. One day, we could build a small pavilion and have birthday parties, or maybe even a skating rink. Our community has a lot of people. and we are eager for something to do. This is our dream. This is what we are looking at, but we couldn't find a good fit. But we want a smooth concrete pad with 2 basketball nets and a space to play hockey. Now I'm going to turn it over to my mom to tell her why it is so important beyond me just wanting to be with my friends and bounce basketball.
Hello, I'm Sarah Hunter, and I assure you that Peyton isn't the only one on our street that's eager to play at the park and play a game of basketball. So Peyton brought this forward a little while ago when we were at the park. And years ago, I remember when I was serving on the Recreation Advisory Committee in the Township, a similar request came forward for a neighboring area. And it was a really great idea, a way for the park to grow up and for kids to have something to do outside of the play equipment that's there. Especially in our area, we don't have a lot nearby. We rely on getting our kids in the car and driving them to neighboring parks for them to be able to use a concrete surface, especially with most of us not having paved driveways. So I won't tell you why play is important. I know that you all, believe and trust that play is important. But in this time, I think play is especially important. Our park is nestled in nature, and when children and youth experience the park, they get the best of both worlds. The research is clear, and it's not at all divided. Opportunities for structured and unstructured play really do boost social, cognitive, emotional, and physical development. So opportunities for play proximal to where our children live either widen or limit their opportunity to engage in play experiences. And what we're proposing is that we widen their opportunity by having some of the opportunities that folks in more densely populated areas in Springwater have. So we did reach out to our neighborhood to see how this lands with all of the folks that live on our street and in our neighboring area. And there was a lot of overwhelming support. A lot of folks shared the reasons why they think this would be a great idea. Some people shared that they were using the park, but that their kids have now outgrown the park. Some shared that the park is frequented, there's a picnic table, it's the hangout spot for all of the older kids, and they would love to see those children have something to do that is active in the area. We also asked for folks to share any concerns that they had, and there were no concerns that were shared or expressed. And there was a lot of support, a lot of excited folks. So we're here today just to plant a seed and suggest this is an idea that is considered in our neighborhood, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you both for the presentation. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. Comments, questions? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Mayor Allen, and thank you, Sarah and Peyton, for your presentation. I was just wondering maybe if we can request to send this back to the Recreation Advisory Committee for further investigation and what their thoughts are. Maybe work with staff to come up with some ideas and what their thoughts are.
Okay, so you're proposing an amendment, Councillor Ma Chapman?
Yes.
Is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Discussion, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess from where I'm sitting, I'd like to know from our recreational staff through you, Mayor Allen, whether or not there's ongoing evaluation of the existing playground facilities and our smaller parks that are already existing as time progresses to what they're going to add or which ones might need this, might need that. I mean, the complexion of neighborhoods is changing all the time. And for a while there, Elmvale, some of our streets were primarily seniors. And in the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot more children in the area too. So I'm just wondering, in respect of our master recreational plan, was there or is there, with some of these existing parks, anything in place to enhance them in this particular fashion as time progresses? I mean, one off here and one off there doesn't work for the whole township. So
right.
That would be my concern.
General
So I'm just
Manager
wondering if
Ramdale.
there is.
Good evening, Mayor Allen. through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. First, Peyton, awesome presentation. Councillor Cabral, yes, we do have, we did do a recreation master plan a little while ago that was not adopted. We do have within the existing this year's 2022 budget request funding to update that recreation master plan, which will look at very things exactly as Ms. Hunter and Peyton asked for. Let's look at the communities, let's look at how they're changing, and let's look at what the needs are. And then once we've got that all across Springwater, bring that forward to council with a plan. So that's where we're going with this one, yes.
Okay, thank you. Other comments, council? So with that, again, thank you for the presentation. It's certainly, we understand the need, but there are a lot of parks and we've got to just get, as has been discussed, an update on the situation in the parks and then start to establish a plan to deal with them. So the amendment on the floor is, can you read the wording, please, Clerk Ainsworth?
Yes, thank you. Through you to council. The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add, and that the proposed addition of a concrete pad to the Crystalwood Park be referred to the Recreation Advisory Committee for review and comment.
Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just with respect to that, I'm happy to have it reviewed, but I would prefer to have it reviewed by staff in-house and then a report come back to council regarding it. I think this is the purvey of staff in our recreational department. And if they would like at their discretion to include comments from the CRA, that would be fine, but my preference would be for the staff to do it. They're the ones with the expertise, and they know where our parks are and what our needs are, and they're the ones that would be doing the evaluation. That'd be my only comment.
Okay, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then Councillor Maude Chapman had her card up.
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you, Ms. Hunter and Peyton, that was awesome. That was really good, buddy. I'm very looking forward to seeing where this goes next. And I think that when it's referred to RAC, it does incorporate staff comment. So I think that that's important to note, that when it's not a specific recommendation from staff, there is definitely review that's incorporated into that. So I definitely would like to see it go back to RAC, and that is the intent of the committee. And I do think that the members of our creation committees, as Ms. Hunter would know, are very in tune to what the needs are of diverse and, like you said, changing communities. So I do think that the direction provided by Councillor Maude Chapman is good direction. I would like to see that supported.
Councillor Maude Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The same wording I was going to use with the deputy mayor, that's what the RAC is for, is the advisory committee, and staff does sit on it. And then the report will go back to staff before what their recommendations are before it comes back to us. So I still like to see it go to RAC.
Yep. So there's, I mean, staff are planning to do what General Manager said. They will be looking for input from RAC because it is a committee that should be giving that input. So let's go to vote on this amendment, please. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And thank you again for the presentation, Ms. Hunter and Peyton. Stay tuned. Okay. Clerk Ainsworth, we have to do the main motion.
Yes, the main motion as amended, please.
Can you read it, please?
Yes. The motion would read that the delegation from Sarah Hunter regarding the proposed addition of a concrete pad to the Crystalwood Park be received, and that the proposed addition of a concrete pad to the Crystalwood Park be referred to the Recreation Advisory Committee for review and comment.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Now, moving on to question period. Members of the public are invited to ask questions of council or make comments regarding an item on the agenda. To do that, you can submit in writing to the clerk's department a question or a desire to present a question at a meeting, details of which are on the agenda. This has to be presented by noon of the day of the meeting. Clerk Ainsworth, do we have any submissions received?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There is a verbal submission from Mr. Timothy Henshaw of 2412 Ronald Road. And this was regarding the item 9.4 on the agenda that has been removed and pulled from the agenda. But Mr. Henshaw is with us this evening to make the oral submission. Now, Mr. Henshaw, I am promoting you to panelist. In a moment, you will be able to unmute yourself and make your statement. And just as a reminder, there is a 2-minute time limit. Thank you.
Testing.
We can hear
you
me, Mr. Henshaw. Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Tim Henshaw, 2427 Ronald Road in Municipal. Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, councillors, staff, and other guests. This is regarding OP 2017003 and ZB 2017010. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and raise my concerns regarding the matter at hand, and I also thank you for delaying decision on this matter. The rezoning of this property to commercial will irrevocably change the residential nature of our neighborhood, and I'm surprised that staff has recommended its approval in spite of the serious deficiencies this property has with respect to distancing and setbacks. I'm disappointed there was no communication about a decision being made November 17th until I received an email an hour and a half after the close-off time for public comment. Many others received no notice. In a separate matter, Councillor Ma Chapman spoke in a public meeting against the project at 45 Huron Street. Almost everyone who spoke at this meeting opposed this project. Our own Township Committee of Adjustment rejected this, and yet staff concluded that this should be approved. What is the point of having a council if their sole job is to rubber stamp the decisions of staff despite local objections? In that presentation, Councillor Ma Chapman cited the concern of increased traffic and safety, yet conveniently overlooks these concerns of the people on Ronald Road and is even championing this project. Councillor Cabral said it best at the April 26th public meeting, reminding council that if this was on Plowright, we wouldn't even be talking about it. The restrictions proposed for the former St. Peter's Church on Ronald Road will be difficult for the township to enforce. The proposed limit of 7 parking spots must cover every inch of the frontage. Most days, 3 vehicles park in the parking zone and fill it. A final concern that I have is about the withdrawal of the zoning change request at 2415 Ronald Road. Was the coming soon to realty sign just a diversion to make neighbors think that the project was changed? Are there any regulations to prevent the owners from constructing their parking pad on what remains to be private property? As a courtesy, everyone who has sent comment or made public comment needs to be advised of the pending decision, not just when it is made. It's only common courtesy to do so. I have continued questions about the biomedical waste generated in the tattoo procedure, and I have inquiries in Simcoe County, Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, and the Ministry of Health as to why these procedures are not regulated and how waste items are disposed of. Thank you for my opportunity to share my concerns with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henshaw, and your comments will be certainly noted and reflected upon as we continue to do further work to bring this back forward to council. So thank you, Mr. Henshaw. Okay, moving to item 7, adoption of minutes of council. Can I have a mover? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, I did also want to note there was a second written submission provided by Dennis Kozu of Ronald Road, but once he was advised that item 9.4 was being pulled from the agenda, he did withdraw his comments.
Thank you. So at minutes of council, item 7.1, can I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman. Any comments with respect to either of these? The motion is that the minutes of special meeting of council November 8, 2021 and the regular meeting November 17, 2021 be received. All those in favor? Carried. Minutes of boards and committees and organizations, mover and seconder. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore. Any comments on the 3 minutes listed? Motion reads that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received. Heritage Advisory Committee, September 28, 21. Recreation Advisory Committee, September 28, 21. And the Library Board meeting of October 19th, 2021. All those in favor? As carried. No correspondence and information items. Action reports, there are now 2, as 9.4, as previously noted, has been pulled from tonight's agenda. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. These on the floor. Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie. Comments on either of these? The motion reads that the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. Honeybee Group benefits renewal for members of council. Road naming SU 2008-1 Springwater Meadows, Elmville Village Phase 2. All those in favor? Well, did you want to speak, Councillor Moore? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I wonder if we could ask the CAO Schmidt to please speak to 9.2.
Certainly.
It's
Yeah,
an
CAO
earlier
Schmidt.
it's an earlier conversation we had. I think council should be aware of our experience with Honeybee over the last year.
CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Cabral and rest of council. So this evening, the report is simply a renewal of the current program that's in place, and all terms and conditions are the same. Essentially, there's no change in the renewal terms. The only thing that I would highlight in a discussion that I had with Councillor Moore regarding this matter is just staff have seen, I guess, or would caution council in the sense of the administration from this program, and it appears that they are also having retention problems with some of their employees. And whenever our staff calls in to this provider, it appears that they are constantly getting new individuals because the previous individuals are no longer with the organization. And it may not seem like a big issue, but when staff call an individual today and tomorrow that individual is no longer with the organization, and it causes a bit of a challenge and a bit of a concern. So again, I think when council discusses with staff the council compensation in early 2022, it might be something that council might want to just consider as we look at that compensation package. So again, the renewal terms haven't changed. I would just caution on the sense of the administration side of things. There could be some concerns. So I'll leave it at that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have a mover and seconder, and I've read it for items 9.2, 9.3. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to information reports, item 10. Mover and seconder for the information reports, get them on the floor. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Moore Chapman. Any discussion or questions with respect to either of these? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And a question, I don't know to whom it would be directed. It's in regards to item 2, procurement e-bidding process. I note there's no financial implications for Township, but I did want to know whether or not this process is, if there's a cost attached to it for the people who want to download the documents or engage in the procurement process. I just wondering whether that might be a hindrance to some people to bid on certain things for the Township. So I was wondering if we might be able to provide just a little bit of an overview of how this process happens and how this company's making its money.
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Cabral. The e-bidding platform has actually been in place for quite some time. And we have been a part of e-bidding, I believe, also for quite some time. We just have been in a process of transitioning from our existing procurement in paper to more of an online platform. I do not believe that there is a fee. I would have to defer to CAO Schmidt, but I do not believe there is a fee for bidders to bid. And I'm not 100% sure if we pay for a fee either. However, from my understanding, it is a best practice that the majority of not only just municipalities are using, but majority of organizations as a whole are using. As we see things move further to the electronic side, we would see potentially even more bidders as a result of moving to an e-bidding platform. I'll refer to CAO Schmidt for any further comments.
CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to add on to Director Radigan's comments, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. So Councillor Cabral, prior to moving, so the platform is bids and tenders, and they provide an e-bidding option, I guess, is what they're providing here. Prior to bids and tenders, the township was with a platform called Bidingo, or Bidingo, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And so both platforms, to my knowledge, requires vendors to sign up, and there is a fee to sign up. And most vendors that conduct business with municipalities are aware that there is a fee. They pay, I think it's a flat fee, and essentially they get to bid on all municipal projects. So whatever they sign up for through this platform, it's not just the Township of Springwater, it could be any municipality in Ontario or that's on the platform, and they have the option to bid. Now, the one change that I believe came into effect is that on going from bid and go to bids and tenders is if you weren't signed up on bid and go, you could not access the documents. So you had to have an account in order to access the documents. On bids and tenders, even if you don't have an account, you can access the documents. So you can access the RFP or the tender documents. The only challenge is that there's a watermark, if you will, on those documents. And if they chose to submit or bid, they would have to sign up and have an account. That is one of the requirements. So they do have access. So one of the challenges, I'll be honest, one of the challenges that we had is the Barrie Building Construction Association, I believe was called. When we were on bid and go, they were constantly asking for documents because they didn't have access to the documents on bid and go because they didn't have an account. Now that we're on bids and tenders, they can access the documents. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to submit. If they want to submit, they have to essentially pay for an account. That account, those revenues do not go to the township. The township does not have to pay for this service. Essentially, the vendors are the ones that are paying for this service. So what we're doing here, to Director Radigan's comments, is submissions have always been, for the longest time, submitted by a hard copy. So people would have to submit, either drive to the municipality and or mail it and or courier it. And we've had instances where individuals, for whatever reason, car breakdown or whatever the case may be, they've missed the deadline to submit. Via electronic submission, that a lot of that goes away. And I think, to Director Radigan's comments, we have received, from my knowledge or my understanding, contractors and bidders saying, when are you going to e-bidding? Like, we're sick and tired of having to print out all of this stuff and make hard copies and submit it. Why can't you just make it easier so we can just submit it online? So it may appear that we might lose some individuals, but I think in the grand scheme of things, we may actually see more bidders, and hopefully we do see more bidders as it relates to whatever bids that we have, or submissions we have, or documents we have, or on bids and tenders. So hopefully that answers the question, but happy to try to clarify.
Just follow on, Mayor Allen, please.
Go ahead.
No, to be quite honest with you, CAO Schmidt, I've downloaded some of the documents myself. They were easier to get from there than they were sometimes to get from the information from staff not knowing exactly who to go to, especially when it came to a couple of jobs that were being done locally in Elmville, that there were some people asking questions about how this was being done and how that was being done. I think it's a good idea. I mean, submitting things electronically comes with its own set of problems too, but I will admit it's far more efficient. The only concern I have is that I'm just concerned that for some of our smaller bids, I don't know what the cost is or what the rate schedule is to sign up for this bids and tenders. Is that, say, for example, a small parking lot that we wanted to get snow removal done at, I would suspect or think that most of the larger snow removal landscaping companies would already be on there because they're going to be sourcing out that work. But smaller firms may not have that opportunity, and they're going to be placed in a position to have to sign up for bids and tenders in order to even quote or submit a bid on it if they wanted to. So I'd really be interested in finding out more about the rate structure prior to just simply saying, let's just do this wholeheartedly, because I think it leaves, and some of these people are people who have small businesses in our own community. So it's not that I'm opposed to it. I just want to know what the fee schedule is and whether or not it presents any barriers to any of our smaller contractors or smaller service providers in bidding on jobs for the township, be it supplying paper to, as I said, removing snow. So that would be my only caveat. So I actually, go ahead.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councilor Cabral. Absolutely, we Councilor Cabral, we can provide you with the pricing. I would say I'll give you a ballpark range, but I think the last time I checked, it was around $100 to $200 possibly for an annual subscription, but I'd have to verify that. And just to clarify too, some of those local jobs, if you will, that may be snow clearing, if for example, that may be less than our formal process, which is I believe $75,000. So if it's below that, township staff do have the opportunity to go out with requests for quotes, if you will, and seek 3 different quotes from local vendors. Then that is another way that we can ensure that some of those local jobs, if you will, they still have an opportunity. So they wouldn't have to go through the whole e-bidding submission process per se. It could just be through some informal quotes, if you will, to ensure that they still have an opportunity for some of those other jobs.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Allen. Maybe it would be possible to get some kind of a feeling on if it's $75,000. I don't think it's a big issue. If somebody's going to be submitting a bid on a job for 75 grand, $100 to $200 is not going to stop them. But if there was a bit of a threshold where we could kind of know that some of these smaller jobs and that were going to be made available, just basically like we do now sometimes in the spring water link or through other means or even on our website. That would be my only concern, Mayor Allen. Other than that, I have absolutely no issue with it. I think it's a very efficient form of conducting business.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Council. I've just checked the website for bids and tenders, and the annual subscription rate as of January of 2022 is $185.66.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, the motion reads that the reports listed herein be received for information: drinking water system inspection report, Deltrand for Anton Mills and Hillsdale, and the procurement e-bidding process. All those in favor? That is carried. Turning to verbal reports, Director Spagnol, any official plan update or economic development update?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Nothing new to report.
Okay, Midhurst Development Update, General Manager Ramdale.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Again, good evening, Mayor Allen, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, members of council. This evening's update will be brief. The site servicing, the utility campus, the model homes are pretty much as I reported the last meeting. Not much has changed there. With regards to the effluent main, the works will begin on Highway 26 over the winter, with Wilson Drive starting in April 2022. moving on to Snow Valley and the Wilson Drive lights. During the site investigations, we actually discovered that there are two high pressure gas mains on Wilson Drive. These vital mains, when I say high pressure, very high pressure, large 12-inch diameter and 10-inch diameter mains, present a considerable risk to construction at any time, but more so right now during the winter because the snow plows that go by the area. Because of this risk, and after conversations with the county and Enbridge, the team made a decision to delay the lights until April 2022, after the snow plowing season, when the risks actually drop a little bit. But I can tell you that the materials are on order. They will be delivered early January. We will store them until April. And I am working with or speaking to the developer that if there are any works that we can start and get done ahead of April, we will get those works done, provided we can do so safely. And that's my report for the Midhurst development. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to county updates, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Nothing specific to report other than, as council's aware, the budget was passed at our last meeting. And I would also like to mention that I actually chaired, not just vice chaired. So I actually got to chair my first county council meeting. So it was quite a experience. And it was definitely the longest portion of that has ever, it felt a lot longer on this end that time. So no, it was good.
Good, thank you. Moving on to municipal updates. Does anybody have a municipal update? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Alan, just Municipal is having a tractor parade, and it's December 10th, starting at 7 o'clock. Oh, and Aunt Mills is having their tree lighting December 11th, and their Santa Claus parade on December 12th.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Elmvale tree lighting is on December the 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Elmvale Parkette. Obviously, social distancing and whatnot will be in effect. That's at 7 p.m. and it's the Hunter family that so generously provided the tree this year. And on December the 3rd, the Junior Farmers Tractor Parade will be passing through Elmvale. A lot of lights this year on the tractors. It'll be at 7 p.m. And on December the 5th, the Elmvale Santa Tour will take place. There's no parade per se in Elmvale this year. However, the Elmvale and District Lions Club will be taking Santa around. I believe they're in the company of our finest firefighters in the Elmvale area here, Springwater Fire. And that'll be starting at 5 o'clock, and they'll just be meandering through Elmvale. No parade per se, like I say, but obviously anyone who lives in the Elmvale area likely would have an opportunity to just poke their head out or stand at the end of the driveway and watch the stuff happen. So.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other municipal updates, I'll swing back around to a COVID update. Did you have a municipal update, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, I wrote down the date for the firefighters for the tree sales, and I now can't find it. So I wasn't sure if there was anyone from fire that would be able to speak to the fundraisers that are going on in our north and south. If not, I can push it back out on social.
Fire Chief Kirk, I see you're here. There he is.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Our tree sales started in the north and the Hillsdale fire stations, I believe, this weekend, and or last weekend, sorry, along with the South Springwater Firefighters Association tree sales. So I'm not sure when they'll wind up. I do know that both events were a resounding success. So I know that the South, out of 170 trees, I believe they've sold 100 so far. So that continues until sales are over. But I can definitely reach out to the associations to get more clarity on your question.
Thank you. CAO Schmidt, COVID update, please. Sorry for skipping that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And by all means, I was thinking maybe we could skip it, but I think with all due respect, due to the current situation and the severity of this current situation, and not to strike the fear of God in anyone, but we do have obviously some concerns. So just quickly here, as noted in today's media update by Dr. Gardner, Simcoe Muskoka has experienced weekly increases in new cases for the past 6 weeks. During the fourth wave, it has been a fairly difficult or different situation for Simcoe Muskoka compared to the province. Simcoe Muskoka's weekly incident rate has been trending much higher than the provincial average. For example, during the week of November 21st to 27th, the province's weekly incident rate was 36.7 new cases per 100,000 population, whereas Simcoe Muskoka was 82.2 new cases per 100,000 population. So again, we've definitely not seen the last of this. According to the health unit's website, they have declared active outbreaks at 29 locations throughout our region, which includes 23 schools, 2 Simcoe County-based shelters, a congregate setting for children in the District of Muskoka, 2 local fitness and recreation centers, and a retirement residence in Barrie. And the health unit has, for the first time, mandated a school closure at an elementary school in Huntsville. Furthermore, effective November 26th, businesses and organizations have been requested to notify the health unit at least 2 weeks in advance of any large sporting and or recreational events or activities and or events that take place at multiple venues or occur over multiple days and or have attendance of over 1,000 persons, which includes participants, spectators, and staff. Again, the health unit is requesting that they be notified, and this will assist the health unit in ensuring that proper public health protocols are in place. From a township perspective, again, all our township facilities do remain open to the public with the exception of our community halls. From a vaccination standpoint, for Simcoe Muskoka, eligible population, so 12 and older. I know the eligible population is 5 now and older, but for 12 and over, 87.6 have received a single dose, 84.7 have received 2 doses, and 5.6% have received a 3rd dose. Springwater specifically, again, eligible population 12 and over, 93 have received a single dose and 90.8 have received 2 doses. For Springwater, for 5 years of age and up to 11 years old, they're reporting 20% have received a single dose. And then just lastly, from a case count perspective, Springwater has had 394 confirmed cases of COVID, which is an increase of 35 cases since my last update on November 17th. Of those, 369 have recovered, none are in hospital, and no new deaths to report. And that concludes my update, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of CAO regarding this? Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I just wondering, CAO Schmidt, about the announcements that we all just made. If actually those are still permitted to go forward. Thank you,
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So Councillor Cabral, my understanding is that I do have an update meeting with the health unit tomorrow. My understanding is that there's been some talk of, I guess, within the last 24 hours about Dr. Gardner possibly making some decisions or recommendations on capacity limits. I know some other health units across the province have already moved that way. He has not made an official decision from what I understand, but I'm sure we'll be getting an update tomorrow. And from that update, I'm happy to advise council accordingly.
Thank you. Moving on to 12, notices of motion. Any notices of motion? And 13 items for future consideration. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I'd like to bring forward then my item for future consideration regarding the light nuisance bylaw.
Okay, to have staff look into that and present a report to council?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Ma Chapman, all those in favor? That is carried. Any others, IFCs? Moving on to bylaw 14.1, can I have a mover and seconder to approve the bylaw? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma Chapman, that the bylaw listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2021 road naming, to -13, 113 road naming, Springwater Meadows, Phase 2. All those in favor? That is carried. And confirmatory bylaw, mover and seconder. Councillor Moore, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that bylaw 2021-114 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on December 1, 2021, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. And a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting, please. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 7:45 p.m. to meet again in regular meeting on December 15th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And good night.